that are used by typical IoT systems. I'm just putting it in full screen mode. Can you see this now? Are these slides visible? Okay. So yeah, we go to the two major types of application layer protocols that are used by IoT systems. First one is COAP and second one is MQTT. So we will be looking at two most common techniques or two most common application application layer protocols that are being used, MQTT and COAP. And as you can see, we have already discussed the previous layer. So the physical layer is typically 802.15.4. And then you have the MAC layer and the physical layer are typically by 802.15.4. And then on top of it, you will typically be having something like, say, low power. Hello? Am I audible? I think I got dropped off in between. Okay, so the idea is that then you have on top of it, you will have okay. So on top of it, you have other access technologies which are being implemented, and then you have the IPv6 or IPv4, depending on whatever you have. Now mostly it is IPv6 based systems. So IP stack is implemented on top of it, and over that you have two options. One, either go for UDP or you go for TCP based application layer protocols. So if you are going for COAP, it is mostly exclusively implemented over UDP. And if you are going to implement something over TCP, it is usually implemented over MQTT. Or basically, so the other way around. MQTT is typically implemented over TCP, and COAP is implemented over UDP. So, and obviously these layers we have already seen in the previous classes. So once this is all completed, then you do not have to worry much about it. Just the transmission will happen. So whenever you are using any kind of IoT programming and all that, all these underlying layers have to be activated before you can actually transmit the data. But because all this is abstracted from you, you will not be able to know what is going on, what is the MAC layer working, what is the access technology you are using, what is going on with the IPv6 stack and all those things. All this is taken care of by the system and the libraries that you are using. So that is not at all even visible to you, right? So this is what happens, and we have two competing technologies or two major technologies that we are talking about, COAP and MQTT. We will try to see them one by one. First, we will start with COAP. Okay, and typically COAP has started out again, as we have seen, with the IETF standards. You can see the IETF standard kind of working group, which is on RESTful environments, has come up with these things in around 2014 or so. COAP had been existing before that also. We see a lot of stuff in the early 2010s and all those things. But the RFC 7252 is something that we find as the major documentation regarding COAP. Okay, so just 1 second. What I will do now is I'll just give me 1 second time. I will share one document with you. This is the actual RFC 7252 document, which talks about COAP. Okay, so just give me 1 second time. I'll just pick up the document and put it in the chat window. It's loading. Okay. Yes, can you see that now? The file should be appearing in your chat box now. RFC 7252.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is the original document from IETF, And if you're interested, please have a look at this. This is actually the original document regarding this. So any textbook or anything that you read will actually be derived from what is mentioned in this particular document. And it's a very technical document, but you should be able to at least make some sense of what is happening, at least in the initial stages. Right? So the whole document is 112 pages. You may not be in a position to read all 112 pages and make sense of it. A lot of it is not very relevant to you also, because it is taken care of by the people who write the libraries for you. So there are no major issues as such. Right. So, but still, if you are interested in learning more in depth about how COAP works and the details of it, you can go through that. I will not suggest it as a compulsory reading, but if you have sufficient time or if you are interested in it, I suggest that you please have a look at this. Okay. So this is for your in enhancing your general knowledge. So if you are interested, fine. If you are not interested, I'll be giving you the presentation. That should be sufficient to help you out with the basics of this. Okay, so we start with COAP, and the COAP is primarily defined in 7252 RFC. There are other RFCs also which talk about other aspects of COAP. We are not looking into that right now, but primary RFC that deals with COAP is this. Okay, and the idea is that you are using the exchange of messages over UDP, not TCP. MQTT is over TCP, this is over UDP. So first thing that we will do is we will just try to have a look at what are the major parts of a COAP message. How do you set up a message? And if you look at it, and if you look at the way in which you try to upload the data, or you typically try to kind of send data to the cloud, or you talk to different devices, you will find that most of this is again taken away from you. At least some of the functions that you may be using to read the message or write the message onto the cloud or to other devices may require you to specify some of these things, but most of the time this should be what you may call this may be kind of abstracted from you. But typically you will have a kind of idea of having a header. So you can see this is the header portion of this, where you specify all the details of the message. We will go into what each of these things mean. And then you have a token. This can be of any size, but this is compulsory. And then you have optional fields. Basically, this is like options. So you what kind of additional options you want to do, and this is where you will have the payload. So this is the section where you have payload, and this is usually kind of frozen. This you don't touch. So you have something like 1 byte of this being frozen, and the remaining 3 bytes can be used for payload. So this is how typically a COAP message format looks like, and you can see that it is kind of slightly larger in size when compared to just transmitting the data as it is. But this is relevant because you want to make sure that the message reaches the location that you are interested in. So for that, you need to have this kind of a messaging format, and this is standard. You do not have a lot of options to modify this in your network or in any of the systems that you are implementing. So once we have seen this, these are the messages or the fields that you need to talk about. But in some cases, you may have done some, I don't know, you have done basic transmission, UART transmission, and those kind of things you have worked with already at the very rudimentary level. Have you done that?
No, sir.
Like you have message bit, you have start bit, you have stop bit. Those kind of things have you done? No.
No, sir.
Okay. So typically what happens is, if you look at the lowest level in which the data is transmitted, typically what you usually specify is there will be a packet length which will be slightly larger than the payload. That's at the lowest level, where you have wired connections between, like say, one-to-one connection between the transmitter and the receiver. you know who's going to receive it, so you don't have to worry much about it. But you still need to tell the receiver how many bits you are sending. Are you sending 8 bits in one shot, or 9 bits in one shot, or 4 bits in one shot? And then you have to have a point which says that, okay, now I am going to start this, start of transmission. And then you have to have an end of transmission. So those kind of synchronize, like those kind of bits are necessary even when you are not using any particular formatting. The lowest, most rudimentary type of formatting that you are using will require at least that many number of bits. So, but here when you have an IoT network which could be having millions of devices, you do need to have this kind of slightly more complicated protocols or complicated packet arrangement, which ensures that the data reaches its destination, right? So here you will see that the first bit that you will be using, typically 1 or 2 bits, which will be basically of the type which will identify what type of COAP we are using. There are new versions of COAP, and there are several ones which are custom made, custom designed. So that will kind of confirm that, okay, you are going to use this particular version of COAP, and the receiver knows what to expect. What should be the byte size, what should be the token length, all those things should be visible. So then you have the second field, which is type. Right, so you have 4 different types of messages which you can send. Types of messages, not 4 different messages. Okay, so 4 different categories of messages are possible. First one is confirmable. Second one is type of non-confirmable. Third one is acknowledgement, and fourth one is reset. So these are 4 different types of messages that you are talking about here. So what type of message you are sending, you will have to specify this. This is a compulsory field. We will talk about this in the next few slides. Okay, and then you have the token length. Token is also an important field which we will discuss in the next coming few slides. And then you have the this is happening. Okay, and then you have the code. So then we will see what is the kind of messages which you are sending, which will typically be what do you say, say push and pop, those kind of messages, not pop, push requests and all those kind of request messages that you are sending, that will be mentioned in this thing here. And again, you have the message ID. Each message will be having its own separate message ID. And because of this, you will be able to see if there are multiple transmissions, and you will be able to respond to them according to the order in which they are coming and so on. Because there is a possibility that if the message is too large, there could be fragmentation. And when there is fragmentation, I mean, like if you're using IPv6 or something like that, for larger packet sizes, you may have fragmentation. That means there could be more than one packet which is sent, considering part containing part of the message. So when that happens, you also have to take care of that. So there are several aspects to that as well. And then you have the options. So you can actually specify the like if you want to use any kind of a proxy system, or you want to transfer through proxy, those things can be provided by the options. We will have a look at this as well. And then you have the final thing, which is a payload. Right? So if you see, when you have a payload, the payload starts with a first byte of all ones. This typically kind of indicates start of the payload. Okay, so and remember that we are sending this in a sequence, right? So all this is going in a particular sequence, and you know that the payload has started if a full byte of ones is arriving. You look at it, you see that, okay, data is coming, and the whole byte is 1, which basically means that the next my payload is starting. So beginning of payload will begin with that. Okay, and obviously you will have only 4 bytes possible, so 3 bytes of data only will be going there. Okay, after that it will automatically terminate. And another thing that we are talking about is that COAP can run both over IPv4 and IPv6. If you remember, we said that COAP is running on top of UDP, and UDP is based over IP, right? And it is usually suggested that the messages need not be very large; they should be as small as possible. Okay, and the maximum size that you can send over IP, if you're using IPv6, is 1280 bytes. And if you want to transmit it without kind of what do you say, fragmentation, what you have is 1024 bytes as the maximum capacity. This is okay when you have a very small type of amount of data which is being sent. Say, for example, temperature sensor data or pressure sensor data is being transmitted. You will not be having 1024 bytes. It's not going to happen like that. Temperature, pressure, if you are transmitting 5 or 6 different things also, it will not take that much space. But if you are, say, trying to update the firmware over the cloud, so you want to push the software updates to the device, IoT node. In that case, the amount of memory that will be required or the packet sizes that will be required will be larger. So in that case, in those kind of times only, you will have the risk of data fragmentation. And why is data fragmentation such a the packet fragmentation such a big problem? It's a big problem, especially in case of lossy networks, because you do not know if the packets are reaching on time. So the possibility of you having to retransmit the number of packets will be much higher. And it's obviously becomes resource intensive also, because you are kind of spending a lot of energy in transmitting. The device is spending a lot of, the edge node is spending a lot of time collecting it, and so on. But it is useful if you say want to use it once in a while to update the software, or if you want to fix a patch or something like that, that can be done using these systems. But then there is a risk of fragmentation, so it's a trade-off there. Okay. So we'll look at each of those in detail. What are the things that you have to talk about? What are the major messages that you can transmit and receive? But first, let's have a look at we looked at what are the major parts in the stack, and then we are just looking at what are the types of communication that you can have. So you can see that the edge devices that you are seeing here, whatever you are seeing here, these are all the edge devices. Okay, so you have the small wireless devices which are connected here, the ones which are connected here. So several IoT devices are connected everywhere. All those are kind of talking to your server or your cloud using COAP. So you can see that you have a backhaul connection which is going on. You have HTTP links which are going to the proxy or to the switch, and then from that you are having COAP connections. So this is typically how it happens. You can talk from device to device through COAP. You can talk from device to the network management services or center there in the which could be sitting at remote location or in the cloud through COAP. So COAP kind of allows you to do all these kinds of communications. It's not like your UART or I2C where you do only very simple device to device communication. COAP and MQTT have opened up a lot of things for you, so you can carry out communication anywhere within the network, or from one network to another network also, or from network to the backbone, or wherever you want, you can do this kind of communications. COAP is something which is not affected by the type of technology being used, or it's not significantly affected by the latencies in the system also. Okay, so that is the idea. So you can see here that you can typically have a basic HTTP mapping also, which basically means that using HTTP mapping is possible for COAP, which basically means that you can run COAP kind of in line with HTTP as well. So those options are also available, and you can do this at a much better rate, and you do not actually need to have a separate infrastructure set up in place for doing this. So whatever HTTP or web services you are using, very common to that is something called RESTful APIs that you could be using, and that works with this as well. Okay, so you can see the just like you have the HTTP, COAP is also based on the REST architecture. REST actually is I mean, like basically you may have gone through the idea of REST architecture. I don't know if you have. Do you have any idea about what is REST type architecture or something like that? REST APIs. Any ideas? Representationals. Yeah.
Yeah,
go
we
ahead,
use
please.
like HTTP verbs using like get post to perform various things.
Yes.
So for example, get would like retrieve a response while post would like update something on the server. Like a post request.
But what is RESTful APIs? What is RESTful? That is the question, generic idea. I'll share one thing with you. I mean, like, because RESTful is not something that we are supposed to learn in this course. I'll do one thing. Just give me a second. You know the company that kind of works on a version of Linux called Red Hat, right? You've
Yes,
heard of
sir.
Red Hat? Yeah. So they
Yes,
have
sir.
a very small tutorial on RESTful APIs. I'll just share it with you. Just give me a second. Yeah, there, here it is. So I mean, like those who are interested in this, please have a look at this. I'll share the link in the message window. So this basically gives you some idea about what is a REST API, what is typically an API. So if you want to know more about this, if you're kind of, if you have not been interested in any kind of microcontroller or programming and other things, please have a look at this. These are very simple ways in which they have tried to explain what is REST and what do you mean by REST. So typically people don't understand what is REST API or what is RESTful kind of. REST is not a protocol actually. So many people don't understand that. So it will be a good idea if you, of all of you, can just go through this link that I have pasted. You can see the link, right? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's come.
Yeah. So please have a look at this. Those who have not worked with microcontrollers or those who have not worked with a JSON kind of representations and other things, these things will come in very handy. Okay, just at least gives you a basic understanding of what we are talking about here. So that is the idea. So let me start again sharing. Yes. Yeah, so this is what we were talking about. Yeah, I think this is what Arun was saying. Na? We're talking about the post, put, delete, and those messages, get, post, put.
Yes, sir. Those HTTP verbs.
Yes. So basically, what you do is that in just like HTTP, so COAP is also based on the same REST type architecture. But the only thing is that it's basically based on edge devices or like things which are actually sitting as client and server. And another very important thing is that the communication is not synchronous, they are asynchronous. Okay. And you have the idea of a uniform resource identifier or URI. So this is a standardized way in which you find out or you basically detect devices or resources in your network. Okay, So typically we'll see that in the next few slides. So what do you mean by URI and all those things? And then what happens is that you will have, once you try to find out, or you basically try to send a message to that you want to access a particular resource on the network, and the server will typically respond that okay, this is the device that you want to access, this is what the status of the device is, and so on. And once you have got that the device is present and it can work and it can give you the whatever you want, you send the typically the 4 commands that you will be using will be this. You will be getting, posting, putting, and deleting. So 4 different request response type statements are assigned to typically connect to the cloud and send the data and receive the data from the resource that you have identified. Okay, so okay, I think I will stop with this for now. I have rushed through some of the portions here. So if you have difficulties, please let me know. Like I'm not very sure if you have an understanding of REST, you know what is URI, URL, if you have studied this kind of messages and so on. Can I have some kind of feedback from you people? I mean, like, have you people in computer networks, have you gone through any of this in the classes so far? I'm assuming a lot of background knowledge that you may already be having as a result of computer networks. Have you studied any of this? What have you done so far in computer networks? Hello?
So we have learned about the 2 layers.
Okay, layers as in
The OSI layers.
so you have reached only up to OSI layers.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that is a little. So I'll try to give you additional material on these things. So hopefully it will help you, because in the syllabus, whatever is given, I can take only that much. But is it okay if I give you additional material? I will not evaluate you on that, but I mean, like, will you have enough time to go through this, or I mean, like, is it okay? I don't know. Will you people be able to have a look at it, or do you want me to just stick to the syllabus? I'll not evaluate you on those whatever extra material I'm giving. All right. So should I be doing that or not? I just want to
Sure, sir.
get some feedback on that. Okay, so I'll give you some extra material. I'll put it in the resources, or I'll put it in the chat box as and when we are talking about. So please remember, if it is not there in the syllabus, I will not be asking you to learn that, or to I will not be evaluating you. But please make sure that you have a look at that. All right. So just looking at the networks course. You do have IPv4 and IPv6 in that. There's a lot of IPv4 and v6 I'm seeing in Unit 2. UDP, TCP in Module 1. Unit 3, you are learning about ZigBee, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. What? Where have you reached in networks? Which unit have you reached in computer networks?
So Unit 4, sir.
Computer networks has got only 3 units.
Sir, 7 units. According to the book, there are 7 units. That's what was uploaded over AMS.
No, I'm talking about the syllabus book.
Oh, sir, in that way, I have no idea, sir. Okay, sir. So there are 7 chapters. I'm really sorry, sir. There are 7 chapters, and we have reached the 4th one.
Which one?
1 second, sir. I'll just check and tell you.
Sir, we are nearing end of unit 2.
Unit?
Unit 2. Almost at the end of unit 2.
Okay. Okay. So you did have some understanding of IPv4, v6 and those things.
Yes, sir.
Right. It's good enough. Okay. Fine then. I think that should be good. And you people are doing Cisco Packet Tracer and NS2 and those things have started?
Yes, sir.
Then they should be good. Okay, so that's all I needed. I will look at the COAP and MQTT. We'll continue with this in the next few classes. So if you have any queries so far, please go ahead and ask. Otherwise, we'll meet in the next class. Anything? Okay. Since nobody is saying anything, I'm assuming there are no doubts so far. Okay, then just 1 second. I'll just take the attendance and then maybe you people can leave. Just give me a second. Okay, then thank you all for attending. We'll continue in the next class. Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.